So there's the Eurocentric beauty standard, and then it already takes you a lot as a Black woman to overcome those and retrain your perspective about beauty so that it doesn't choose that arbitrary standard as the basis for everything else. So once you overcome that and you actually start embracing your natural hair and the way that you look, the way that God made you, all of a sudden you're met with another chain, standard, whatever you have. It's the most frustrating thing being a Black woman, because I feel like you have to jump over so many hurdles just to reach a state of equilibrium and neutral where we're just not caring anymore about what anyone is saying. So here I am all these years later thinking, wow, I'm finally getting to that place where I really love my hair. And I do, don't get me wrong, this is not me going back on that in any way, shape, or form. But then I realized, you know what, there is something so bothersome about the natural hair space, and primarily it is because of something I coined: natural hair dysmorphia. Now, if this triggers you, bothers you in any way, shape, or form, then I just suggest you click off the video. Now, of course, this is not a scientific, medical, or official psychological term. It is just my coinage, because I think this best helps me to understand what happens when a Black woman is coming into her true unique beauty and form, the way she was created by God. And even though I have done a pretty decent job of overcoming a lot of my struggles with my natural hair and the way that I look, even just my natural beauty, I just realized that there is something gnawing at my spirit about when people online come to my channel and tell me that my edges are thinning because of whatever. I don't know where they're getting that from. And also this unwaning need to tell me that I need to do something to thicken my hair. And then it dawned on me, I was like, I know what this is. This is natural hair dysmorphia. After all these years, I've transformed, I've fallen in love with my hair, I've embraced myself, and this desire is what drove me to create my YouTube channel in the first place, because I feel like women with my combination of hair don't necessarily get a lot of love online. And it only got confirmed within the last video, where it's not even the last video, it's been a pattern where people comment about my edges. They're not there because of what exactly? Because we're gonna get into that in a second. And then also, I get this comment a lot about trying certain treatments and stuff to thicken my hair. Newly subscribed to my channel, I just want you to get this. I have no problem with having low density, fine, 4C natural hair. It is not a problem. I love this combination. I always tell everyone here that it's a winning combination, and I love it. It's just the way God made me, and I have no issues about that. And the way I understand it is, people look at a woman like me with thin edges and low density hair and think that something's wrong. You know why? Because most of us are used to terrible lace fronts with thick edges that don't naturally exist on you. So here's my problem, and this is why I came up with this word, because most Black women assume that if your edges aren't thick, you are damaging it. If your hair is low density, you're damaging it. We're so accustomed to seeing a form of natural hair and assigning it as the basis or the foundation of natural hair. For example, usually women with thick hair or thick edges, nobody talks about them. Nobody says anything negative. Nobody says or points out any flaws in having that combination of hair. But as soon as your hair is low density or your edges aren't thick and laid and slayed with a bunch of gel or edge control, whatever the case is, like your lace fronts, all of a sudden your hair is damaged. And that's where I believe this term makes sense, because most Black women are known for not wearing their natural hair. Our norm is braids, extensions, even locks, extension locks, lace frontals, of course, weave, and all kinds of styles that go so against what our hair naturally looks like. Take a lace front, for example. I used to be an avid lace front wearer, so I'm not throwing shade at anyone. I used to have a whole collection. I used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on getting high quality lace front wigs. Yes, I used to bleach my knots and tweeze the hairline and do everything I can to make it look as natural as possible, even though you can still see that grid. So I am not a stranger to this. And one of the struggles I had was when I took that thing off, my forehead looked larger than I was accustomed, and my edges also looked very thin. I always had thin edges, always. There was never a period of my life from the moment I was a baby to now where I had thick edges that laid like my lace front baby hairs. Never had it, never. And it's the same with my density. I've never had thick hair. In fact, a lot of times when I was growing up young, people thought my hair was thick because of the texture, but not realizing that I don't have that many strands on my head. So then it's like, well, if Black women are so used to seeing ourselves without our natural texture, that's why people will look at me and say, wow, your edges are thin, or your density is very low, or you need to thicken your hair strands, because we're so conditioned to seeing natural hair being represented as one thing, thick and full-on edge baby hairs. And I personally do not like the look of baby hairs. I mean, I used to do them before with what little I did have. I used to do them before and I'd get away with it every now and then, but I don't like the look of that. I prefer my hair to just be just how it is. Like, I don't want to swoop it down. I don't want to make it do something it doesn't want to do, or I have to force it down. And here's the truth, you guys, no two strands of hair are different. Are the same. No two Black women have the same of anything. This is kind of like saying, oh, all Black women should have straight teeth, or all Black women should have large butts. The world is too different. Like, it's too many variables out there in how a human being looks. So are there features that's typical of a certain people group, like Black, Hispanic, white, Latino, I said Hispanic, Asian, African? Maybe, but no, because for every African you find that has a stereotypical trait, you're gonna find one who doesn't have the stereotypical traits. But I think our people are just so conditioned on hyperfixating on features. The fact is, if there is a spectrum of curl types and densities and porosities, why are we expecting edges to be a part of that too? I mean, why aren't we expecting edges to be various like that? It's going to vary across person to person. Understandable why a lot of us fall for these things. We fall for these molds and these standards. If it's not the Eurocentric standard, then within the Black community, when you zoom in into the natural hair space, it's another standard, and you're just like, I'll never measure up. Not that I'm trying to measure up, you guys. I'm just belaboring this point because it's time we stop imposing our deep-rooted biases and judgments on people. Being a Black woman in the natural hair space is very exhausting. It's like, do you ever catch a break? I mean, here you are, and that's why I'm here, you guys. I'm never gonna go away until my job is done. But I believe that my channel is specifically here to help tear down these imposing ideas that we can't seem to escape. If it's not fashion, skin color, hair type, where you go to school, where you live, if it's not those things, it's always something else that Black people as a whole are creating to put us in more chains and more standards and more modes that you have to fit. And it's so unfair, because beauty is not prison. It's not. Beauty is an art form. Beauty is seeing God in His creation. That's what beauty is, and embracing exactly what that is, however you look. Roses and tulips are both beautiful flowers, but they're not the same. They have their own glory, each of them. By trying to tell me that I have to, try this oil on your edges so it'll grow in, I'm not trying to this is the way that my edges has always been. Save for the little brief period of time where I was doing lace fronts. And thank God by the time I stopped using them and that line of demarcation where the sun doesn't hit and finally like the skin tone evened out there, my hair grew back there. And how my edges are today, that's how they have been at their optimum. I think one thing that really cripples Black women especially is because we look at beauty as a one-size-fits-all. I really love what God did to me. I really, really do. The only thing I'm trying to change is just inches. Like, I just want longer hair. But at the same time, I'm not obsessive about having the look or having the aesthetic that all the brands want. I don't care. Now you're probably saying, well, Char, why are you making this video? I'm making this video because this is part of the Coily Code. This is part of my channel. I believe that there are just women with combinations of hair, even if it's not mine, but let's just say your edges aren't thick and slayed and laid like everyone says you should, like a lace front and all that. There are women here on this space that's looking for help, that's looking for someone to assist them in their journey. But they're coming up against comments like these. Comments that tell you there's something wrong with you because your edges aren't as thick or your density is really low. Like, I have the cure-all for your problems because what you have is a problem when really what you have is not a problem. I guess it's hard to believe that somebody could not want what everyone else is propping and pedestalizing as the best thing to have in the natural hair space. It's, to me, the Achilles heel of the Black community because we just don't seem to accept ourselves as God created us as a collective. And that's why I believe in natural hair dysmorphia. I believe that we're so used to seeing our hair one way that when you see it so starkly different from what you have been used to all your life, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, and you do something entirely different, it looks weird. When I stopped wearing lace fronts, it looked weird for me. I just felt like, oh my God, like, oh my God. But you know, as time went on and I became courageous enough to start wearing my hair, even though I felt a certain type of way about it. And then I did have people come around me and boost me up in that way of letting me know like what you have is really beautiful. And the world's been lying to you all this time, because if you really knew how beautiful you were, you would disarm so many brands, you would disarm corporations, you would disarm people in your life who are used to putting you down. You would disarm so many people. And the most important person you're going to disarm is the enemy, who is out there to kill, steal, and destroy God's creation. When you disarm these proverbial powers that control narratives, that control how you should see yourself, that control education, that controls a lot of things, it sets you free so they can no longer enslave you in that way. And then you do live a life of freedom. You live a life that's fulfilling. I want us all collectively, no matter where you are on the spectrum, to just challenge ourselves, to shift our perspective about what we're saying to people and what ideas and what philosophies, what images are we imposing on people? Are they fair? Are they right? Because when it comes down to aesthetics and beauty, no, they're not right. They could never be right. When I think about how much time it took for me to fall in love with my natural hair, and fall in love with it, not the texture alone, not the density alone, but just how it complements the rest of me. But I also want to be upfront too that it is not something I have fully grown into when it comes to my edges. I know that they are not the thickest, and it is a comment I get a lot on my channel, a lot more recently. And sometimes I do feel I have to compensate for not having the thick slayed edges. Sometimes I do. I feel like, if I walk out the house today, I need to do a little bit of something to make them look thicker. So I'm not saying that I've got it down and I'm like, don't ever, I think that's why part of it was to record this video, because it is something that I am growing into. I've grown into my texture, love my texture. I've grown into my density, love my density. I've grown into my hair length, and still, no pun intended, but I love where my hair is right now. I love it in the stage that it's in. But one thing I do want to grow into more is my edges. My edges have always been this way. It's not like I don't wear tight hairstyles, and I don't even pull at my edges like that. Anytime I do a style, I'll try to bring them out. And like the last updo I did, most people probably would have said, hey, you need to brush your hair, you need to brush your edges, you need to put a little bit of edge control, you need to slick it down. And I was like, no, I just like my hair the way it looks. So I have very strong days and sprints where I'm just like, good. And then there are other days where I'm just feeling a bit more self-conscious about it. But it is a thing. Natural hair dysmorphia is real. But part of overcoming the problem is exposing it and realizing if you have some form of it, to say it. We have to expose these problems in the spaces where Black women primarily make up majority of the viewership, and start to challenge them instead of just accepting it. Because that's the thing, we keep accepting it, and that's what allows the powers that be to continue to exploit us. And I'm not down for that at all. So what do you guys think? I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are about this. I read every single comment. Believe me, I respond to every comment, and no matter what, the Coily Code is always going to be a channel filled with content meant to help you in your journey towards wholeness, not just about your natural hair, but about you. And even though I don't necessarily do content outside of hair, what God has shown me is that through my natural hair, He opened up all the other facets of me that had been held back because I first wasn't accepting what I was on the outside. So every now and then it may come up, because these issues speak to a much deeper symptom or problem than just hair and aesthetics. So, and I want to do my best to help you go from overwhelmed to overjoyed in your natural hair journey. So with that being said, chime in the comments below. Keep it classy, keep it elegant, very demure, very mindful.